So ESPN is in fact going to have a deal in which they are the exclusive media rights partner of the college football playoff, media rights holder, if you prefer, through 2031 for a deal that is worth, over $1 billion. So there's a good amount of money there. But some provisions that have been reported by Nicole Auerbach at The Athletic, amongst others, are basically that the Big Ten and the SEC are going to run this thing. And look, I'm a little surprised that ESPN is the only media entity that is going to broadcast or cover college football playoff games. There are just so many different outlets. I'm surprised nobody else wanted it, but ESPN is able to get the deal. And look, the money is clearly enough, and 58% of that revenue is going to go to the Big Ten and the SEC. And they'll split it at 29% each. And then the Big 12 and the ACC. But this deal could once again change because of everything we've talked about on today's show. If the ACC loses Florida State and Clemson and they go to the SEC, what do you want about the SEC? Greg Sankey doesn't get on the phone or start a Zoom call or however they communicate at these high levels of college football and say, hey, excuse me, we just added the biggest brands from the ACC to our conference, and we just took the biggest brands from the Big 12 in Texas and Oklahoma. We should get more than the Big 10. Would they do? I'm not saying it'd be a landslide, but certainly if you're adding two brands of that caliber that draw in the television ratings that Florida State and Clemson are capable of delivering, and that's been proven over the last several years, then maybe they would ask to get a little bit more. But really what could happen is the ACC could lose even more power and even more influence here. And I don't think there's anything they can do about it. If the courts come down and say the ACC does not have the right to keep Florida State and Clemson here through their grant of rights, and they're able to leave the conference for however many hundreds of millions of dollars apiece, it won't matter that the ACC has that war chest for its conference to distribute to its members. The money is not going to be there. You're going to be running at such a significant deficit that trying to compete with the Big Ten and the SEC, there's nothing you can do. I don't know what sort of leverage the ACC can come up with here if in a 14-team hypothetical playoff in which the ACC and the Big 12 get 2 automatic qualifiers and the Big 10 and the SEC get 3 or 4 each, how in the world, if the Big 10 and the SEC come back and say, you know what, ACC, we just took your 2 biggest brands who have had the most success in the playoff and are the only ACC programs to, win or play in a national championship game over the last decade or so since we've had the college football playoff, you're actually going to be a 1-bid league. The ACC would be then in a slightly better position financially and power structure-wise in college football than the group of 5. The entire group of 5 would get the same number of automatic bids as the ACC. I think they'd absolutely do it. Because if you're the Big 10 and the SEC and you're wanting to go and get Clemson and Florida State, well, then guess what? What does that say about your mentality? That you just want more. As I've said for a while on this show, nothing is ever enough for these people. Whoever you're referring to when these decisions get made, oh, well, they're getting more money. Surely that's enough. Nope. Oh, well, they already took the biggest brands from this conference. Surely that's enough. Nope, it's clearly not. Oh, well, they're already getting a majority, a lion's share of the college football playoff bid. Surely that's enough. No, it's not. It just isn't. And so I don't think that ESPN plays too big of a factor here, except for what I've seen reported, which is they're not going to push back on the notion. And I don't know that they'd even have the ability to, because then maybe the Big Ten and the SEC go try to get somebody else involved. But they're clearly the ones pulling the strings. It's funny that we're in this world, not funny, because I don't find this stuff to be amusing. I find it to be interesting. I don't find it to be good for the sport or good for the fans who actually make the sport what it is. A while ago, about 2 years ago maybe, I watched a documentary on ESPN, which is, I cannot recommend it enough. It's called The American Game. You can watch it on, I think ESPN Plus has got it available in the archives over there. And when college football first started to really blow up nationally was kind of in the mid-20th century, mid to later portion of it. But when television was first introduced for college football, well, it was a revolutionary concept. You telling me I don't have to go to the stadium and pay for things like a ticket or a park, I can just turn on my TV? All that stuff that costs maybe a third of what my television costs, and I can watch several games? This is amazing, is how the consumer saw it. Old heads in the sport at the time looked at television and said, this is going to destroy college football. Why? Because they said people would stop going to games. Well, what do you need to go to the games for if you've got television? And look, I am not saying that they were right. I'm saying they had a point, that the marriage of television and college football was not a perfect one. Now, on the whole, television has been magnificent for the sport of college football. You have allowed it to grow across the country. The access, the ability for fans to watch their teams and enjoy their games on Saturdays has been outstanding. But the influence of television has just continued to go up and up and up and up, to the point where the NCAA hasn't been a major governing structure in college football for quite some time. They kind of yielded power to the conferences, and the conferences have now yielded power to the television networks. And the television networks that are running all of this stuff have zero interest in what is best for the sport or what is best for the fans. And look, ESPN has a responsibility as a business to go after their bottom line and make it as strong as possible. I understand that. I also understand that none of these moves needed to happen. None of it. It didn't have to happen. You could have had a playoff with 5 power conferences that are much more closely aligned in terms of their competitive depth at the top, middle, and bottom of their leagues. But now you don't have that. You're just continuing to see this separation. It's just going to grow and grow and grow, and it's not going to go away. It's not going to go away because television executives and conference commissioners and university presidents who are making these moves have one thing in mind: more, more, more. And it's crazy that we're already talking in this vein about all of these sorts of moves because a lot of them haven't happened yet. We're talking about changes for 2026 and a more than $1 billion playoff deal for ESPN to have as the sole proprietor of the media rights for the college football playoff through 2031. That's all, done of sorts, but it hasn't even happened yet that we've expanded the playoff. ESPN is going to let the Big Ten and the SEC, again, according to reports, dictate what the playoff structure looks like, who gets to play, what the automatic qualifiers are, how many bids each league can get, and all of that. They're just going to continue because it's a little bit like doomsday. You keep shooting at doomsday, and guess what? He just keeps getting bigger and bigger. DC comic fans will understand the reference, but that's where college sports are. There's no kryptonite that I can see to level this stuff off. Appreciate everyone listening. I'll see you next time, and until then, hope you have a wonderful rest of your day.